Hey, folks, welcome to the pre-show. The pre-show. Pre-show goes for 3 minutes, and then we're live over on subspace.radio for the audio version of this show over on the radio. And, of course, we're live over here on the YouTube stream. So, and a couple of different places on Facebook. I think even Twitter. I don't know if it shows up live on Twitter or not. You know, while I'm sitting here talking about it, I got to go double check that. I've been pushing it out to Twitter. Skip for now. Bloody, my home over on Twitter. Yeah, looks like all you got to do is hit the button over there. And yeah, it's playing on Twitter. How about that? So I've been putting all my shows up over on Twitter. I don't have much following on Twitter. I used to have, and then I quit Twitter a long time ago. So anyway, yep, it's up over on Twitter. Hey, everybody, how you doing? Good to see you, Leslie Holker. Nice to see you there this morning. This evening, I mix up my nights and days. You know, I have no windows down here, and so sometimes I don't know if it's dark out or light out. It was a gorgeous day today, though. I did step outside for a little bit. We got about 45 seconds. And we go live over on the radio station. Radio station. How's the mic? Am I coming across hot? Looks like my settings are high. Like somebody's been messing with them or something. So, let's see. Thank you, Leslie, for the links up there. We got about 20 seconds and we go live. So all of you stand by. I'm going dark. I'll be right back.
The Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Well, happy Monday, everyone. Welcome back to the program. This is Scotty Roberts, your host here on the Intrepid radio program. You can hear us live in audio over on the radio station. That's at subspace.radio. And, whoa, what was that noise? Subspace.radio. Oh, we're pouring up something. Oh, listen to that. You can guess as to what it is. I only spilled a little bit on my lap. So welcome to the program. You can catch us live in the simulcast in video over at YouTube. And that's my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. And you can also catch us over on Facebook at several different places. My page, the Intrepid radio page, Subspace radio page. And I think that might be it. And of course, over on Twitter. And so, and pretty soon over on Spreaker and other places like that as well. So, but that doesn't count for tonight, that last one. So, I am going to, rather than keep saying, I will talk slower. And we're about ready to get going. And welcome to the program for a Monday night. I hope all is well over there. I want to say hi to everybody that's gathering over in the chat room. There's a handful of you over there that show your faces. There's Uncle Dave, who woke up and apparently called me and apparently called my wife and everybody because he was worried and thought I wasn't on air. So Uncle Dave, thank you for caring. He was just up and he looked at his clock wrong and thought it was an hour later than it was. So Rainey was at Scouts. Monday nights, she's a Scout master. And so she is doing classes and doing activities with the kids. And she just rolled in about 5 minutes before the show with all our kids who were also in Scouts. And my phone ringer was off. How about that? I didn't notice that till Rainey said, "Did Uncle Dave try to call you?" Or she doesn't say Uncle Dave. She says, "Did Dave try to call you?" And I said, "No, I don't think so." So that's why you couldn't get a hold of any of us, Dave. So my ringer it shuts itself off. I don't know what I do. I turn it down for certain reasons throughout the day, and all of a sudden, my ringer's off and all my sounds. So that's it. I never really cognitively, consciously turn the thing off, and that's why when the only time it rings when I'm in a phone call or I'm on air with Wendy or something like that. So, and by the way, tomorrow night, Tuesday, 4 p.m. Central Standard, 5 p.m. Eastern, you can catch Robertson. And that is our one night of the week that Wendy and I broadcast. Wendy broadcasting live from Sutton, Surrey, just to the south of London. And I think I got it right this time. South, not north. And she's only corrected me 80 times over the years. And so I will be broadcasting from here in Wisconsin. And so 4 p.m., 5 p.m. if you're out east, 2 p.m. if you're on the left coast. And we will have our show. And it's going to be an interesting show. Tomorrow is Valentine's Day. If this is your first reminder of that, slap your forehead and go, "Oh, it's tomorrow's Valentine's Day." So if you've got a sweetheart, a loved one, a significant other, a wife, a husband, a boyfriend, whatever it might be, tomorrow is Valentine's Day. If you forgot. If you didn't forget, you're going, "Hey, thanks for the reminder." So tomorrow, Wendy and I will be talking about Valentine's Day in a certain sense. We thought we'd draw a lot of people in and talk about sex. But we're going to be talking about passion more than anything, and it will involve all those things like that. So welcome, everybody that's strolling into the room. I appreciate your presence here. Catherine Roop, good to see you. I don't know if it's Roop or Rupee. So Catherine's a new friend of mine. Good to see you, Catherine. And everybody else, Steve Clark, Matthews Sainsbury from Barbados, Carlene from out east somewhere. I think you're in Michigan, not Michigan. That's east of here too. But Massachusetts. We got Leslie Holker from up north of here, northwest. And Barbie D is here tonight. And who else we got? We've got Field Guy from Louisiana. We got Matt Finn, Master Finn. He is the master and commander of this here chat room. And so welcome to Master Finn as well. Good to see you, brother. And everybody else who's here, if I missed you, it's not because I missed you. Morgan Snow. It's because I'm just scrolling through kind of fast. So good to have you all here. And I'm glad you made it in. Tonight, we are continuing our series on Amenhotep II. Now, I try to make this stuff as interesting and as fun to listen to as possible. You all know about Amenhotep II from listening to this show for so many years. I've talked about him before, but this little mini series I'm doing on Amenhotep II right now is something that's filling in some gaps. Some of the things going into the meat of the detail. I've talked about him as being the pharaoh of the Exodus. Now, if you were raised, everyone gets it wrong. No worries, says Catherine. Thank you. And I still don't know how to pronounce it. Oh, Roop. Just Roop. R-O-O-P. For R-U-P-E. That's fantastic. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for coming in. And welcome, by the way, to all of those of you over on the radio station, over on subspace.radio, who can only hear the audio of this show. And if you want to see the video simulcast, you can come over here to YouTube. You can go to Twitter. You can also go to Facebook. The best chat room that's available is right here on the YouTube channel. And that's youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. And so come on over there. And if you're not subscribed there, hit the subscribe button. And also hit the little bell so you get your notifications. And if you want to, you can join this channel. Now, the shows are always free of charge. But if you want to help support the channel, you can click on the join button. There's 3 ways you can do it. I think it's $1, $5, $15 a month, whichever one you want to do. So go take a look at that if you would, if you haven't already. And if you don't and you can't, that's okay. I'm glad to have you here. And Amenhotep II, we've talked about him. I've talked about it in the past because I included him in one of my books. I think a couple of the books I've written. We went through the litany of Moses and why Moses, I believe, was a real guy and what he wrote in the first 5 books of the Bible. And as far as the Pharaoh of the Exodus, why is it important to know that? I think it's as important as any other historical fact. I think it's important, especially when we look at the way people view biblical stories and want to relegate them to the realm of myth. And I also think there's a lot more meat we can put on the bones. Now, you all know me. I'm a guy that said I walked away from my faith a very long time ago because I had struggles with it and problems with it and questions with it. And I like to go into scripture to dig out and root out things that are problematic areas. I like to call them biblical mysteries. You can call them earth mysteries, world mysteries, historical mysteries, however you want to look at it. So I never try to preach at you on this show. And I certainly don't preach the Bible at anyone. And I certainly don't want to offend anyone's sensibilities when it comes to their faith. But like I say about my faith, I haven't thrown out the baby with the bathwater. It's still there, but I have my questions. But one of my pet projects in life, if you can call it that, project is a small word. It's for a small thing. One of my pet things in life is I like to, for myself, research and illuminate the biblical stories. I want to find out more. Is there less to it than we're told? Is there more to it than we're told? And I love the history of it. And here, I got to take a drink. Pardon me. I think I've told the story before in many different ways and in many different shows and different facets of shows, how I got into the story of Moses and why I enjoyed that story. I was 13 years old, and I remember I did a comic book on the 10 Commandments, which back then, when I was 13, we're talking 1973, 74, and used to watch the old Charlton Heston, Yul Brynner, the 10 Commandments movie, and I loved it. It was a great old Technicolor, spectacular, epic film. Moses, Moses, so it shall be written, so it shall be done. You know, I always liked that film. And so I did a little comic book of it in Magic Marker. And that actually got me attention at a private school through our church. And I was given a 3-year for my high school years, 10th, 11th, and 12th, 3-year scholarship to the Christian high school. And then from there, I went on to Bible college. From there, I went on to theological seminary. And we all know, I've told the stories about that. I didn't graduate from college. The seminary picked me up, was going to train me in the balance of my my bachelor's degree while I did my master's degree. And I put 2 years into my master's while doing the tutoring for the bachelor's, and then dropped out and went into advertising for the next 35 years. So I was a minister. I was a youth minister for a while, did that. We're talking way back in the early 80s to about 90, right around that time. And so other than that, this has been a pet. I still can't think of a good word for it. Maybe to not start it with pet. This has been a favorite topic of mine, has been the life of Moses. That one and the life of David. And we did a big series on the life of David. I wrote my books on Moses, the Exodus reality, with John Ward, identifying who I believe Moses was. I think he was that guy right over my shoulder right there. As you all know so well, if you're a longtime listener of this show, that is Senenmut, that little bust back there next to Bigfoot, which I believe is real too. But Senenmut is my candidate for Moses. We wrote a book about it. And He lived in part under the reign of Amenhotep II. And without getting into his lineage and all that too deeply, Moses would have been born during the reign of Thutmose I, whose daughter was Matkare, whose later regnal name was Hatshepsut. She became the female pharaoh after her husband, brother, Thutmose II, died. And he left one heir, Thutmose III, from a harem wife. And he would have been about 3 to 6 years old at the time of Thutmose II's death. And so Matkare became co-regent with him as his aunt stepmother. That's what happens when you marry your sister down here in Appalachia. But so she became co-regent, and then she took over after about 6 years as pharaoh. She reigned as pharaoh as a man. She had a daughter. She had a tutor in her household, a commoner by the name of, we don't know, but she ended up naming him Senenmut, that guy back there. And Senenmut gained 92 royal titles during his 40 years working for Hatshepsut. I believe Hatshepsut was the young girl, the prince, the pharaoh's daughter mentioned in the book of Exodus, who found Moses in the Nile, and she was too young to raise him. Should have been 7 to 10 years old. She sent him back to his mother, as the scripture says, for him to be weaned until she was old enough to take him. Then she takes him and she elevates him to Grand Vizier, one step off the throne of Egypt, and gives him all these royal titles. And well, then he disappears off the scene when he's about 40. Egyptian records tell us nothing. Hatshepsut dies, and then he disappears, Senenmut. There's no record of his death, nothing. All of her images, they start to scrape them off the temples. And Thutmose III, the young boy who was born, who was the rightful pharaoh, he's now about 29, 30 years old. He takes over as pharaoh, and he reigns for another 40 years. And in his old age, his son, Amenhotep II, this topic of our show tonight, Amenhotep II takes over as pharaoh, but he's co-regent with his dad for a few years, from the time he's 18 until his dad dies around the time he's 21 or 22. And then in the year that it would have been his 23rd year of life, 23 years old, his 5th year as pharaoh, is when I believe the Exodus took place. And that was right around 1445 to 1446 BC. Now, we've talked about all this stuff before. I've read the book on air. We've talked about, hit the topic in several different ways along the way. Now we have come to the place where last Wednesday, we started this little mini series on Amenhotep II, filling in some of the gaps about him, talking more about him, giving reasons why the dating system works, giving reason why you can look at things like the Sothis, the star, where they were looking at it from, how to tell the dates. We looked at the key date, and I'm going to mention that again for you here. 1 Kings 6, verse 1. You'll find this in the Old Testament. 1 Kings 6, 1. And it says, and I even pulled out my old Bible, which I hadn't cracked in a long, long time. This is the Bible I had when I was in seminary. This Bible, it was a gift to me from my former in-laws. And 1 Kings 6, 1 says this. Now you have to pardon me. I got to put on my readers, my cheaters, my old man spectacles. Let's see here. 1 Kings 6, 1. I'm going to read this for you again. We're going to talk a little bit more about this tonight, this date. Now, when Solomon takes the throne, David's son, David, the great king, the founder, you will, of the United Kingdom of Israel and Judea. We know all about David from the stories of David and Goliath, David and Bathsheba, David and King Saul. And I did a whole series on that 3 years ago or more. But when Solomon comes to the throne, he finally builds the temple in Jerusalem. God had forbade David from building the temple. He said, "You're a man of war. You're a man of coalescing the kingdom. I'm going to leave that to another to do." And so Solomon comes in and he starts to build this temple. And in chapter 6, verse 1 of the book of 1 Kings, it says this: "In the 480th year after the Israelites had come out of Egypt, in the 4th year of Solomon's reign over Israel, in the month of Ziv, the 2nd month, he began to build the temple of the Lord." Now, that's pretty specific. The 480th year since the Israelites had come out of Egypt, the 4th year of Solomon's reign, the month of Ziv, which was the 2nd month, he began to build the temple of the Lord. That's 1 Kings 6:1. That's a hinge pin date right there, because we know that archaeologically the temple in Jerusalem was referred to as Temple 1. These are all things we've talked about before. Just recapping for you. So Temple 1, as it's referred to archaeologically, was built by Solomon in year 966 BCE, the middle of the 10th century. And they say it was 966 or 965 is the year they've got it pretty much pinpointed down to. So is it as easy as taking that math from that verse that says 480 years earlier, the Israelites left Egypt under the Exodus, under Moses? So 2nd month of Ziv, February, says Pearl Jones. There you go. And so we've got all this information that brings us to a chronological date. Now, if the Temple 1 was being built or dedicated to be built in 966 BCE, take 480 years, and you end up back at 1446 BCE as the date of the Exodus. Is it that easy? Yeah, it's that easy. I don't think, and what we're going to go through tonight is a little bit of the justifications for the dating system, how we arrive at that, why it's not an allegorical date, why it's not an incorrect date, why it's not a bad number, and things like that. We're going to go through a couple of those things. And we're also going to take a look at, well, we'll get into a couple of other areas as well tonight. And I'm going to pick up where we kind of left off the other night. We're talking about the case of the chronology. How do you date this event? And the biblical chronology, precisely dating Exodus. The exact date of the Exodus has to be established to understand this and to move on from this. The central text for this, it's a crucial historical event. That's the one I just read you. 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 1. It connects the Exodus to later Israelite history by noting that Solomon began constructing the temple in the 480th year after the Exodus. And so you've got all of the minimalists agree that the counting of the 479 plus, just short of 480 years, should begin with May of 967 or 966 BCE. That would be the 2nd month, Delaney. Just a little different than our months, our calendars. And depending on whether one accepts Young's or Thiel's version of Solomon's regnal dates. Thus, the 479 years began either in 1446 or 1445, either of which can be substantiated by the biblical text, and it's all harmonized with the conclusions drawn. And now, the case for dating the Exodus to 1446, there's a compelling argument for choosing 1446, in that the Jubilee cycles, in the land of Israel, they had the laws of the Jubilees, and they agree with this date exactly. Yet they're completely independent of the 479 years that we find in that verse. 479 plus, being technical here, rounding it up to 480. So the Jubilee date, the years of Jubilee in Israel, are precise only if the priests began counting years when they entered the land in 1406 BCE. And the Talmud says this, lists 17 cycles from Israel's entry into Canaan until the last Jubilee in 574, which is 14 years after Jerusalem's destruction, by using the Tishri calendar, a statement also found in chapter 11 of the Seder of Olam, which predates the Talmud. So consequently, 1446 is preferred over 1445. So it's only a 1-year difference. But the years of Jubilee, do you all remember when did the years of Jubilee take place? Every 7th year was considered in Israel. It was a year of Jubilee. It was the year that debts were forgiven. It was the year that, several things took place in the year of Jubilee. And it was every 7 years. So the priests, they kept track of this. And there were 17 of them times 7. There are other factors that factor into that. You end up with this, they went until 574 BCE, and that gives you the date of 1446 for the Exodus. So, and you have to look at all these things. You can look at things like, when did Solomon die? He died in 602. You can look at all the works of all these different scholars. When did Solomon die? 601 to 602, 599 to 603, said Young. The exact month and date of the Exodus can be deduced as God had established for Israel a lunar calendar that began with the month of Nisan, originally Abib, in Exodus 13:4, and precisely predicted the day of the Exodus as Nisan 14. And the new moon that began the month of Nisan in 1446 BC reportedly occurred at 2142 Universal Time on Wednesday, the 8th of April. That's when they say it happened, by this dating system. And so, assuming there were no significant variations in the Earth's rotation, apart from roughly 25 seconds per century that NASA allows for a tidal retardation and all of that, because of the Earth's rotational velocity. However, there's 2 variables that have to be factored into the equation. One, the date used to mark the new moon varies slightly according to the point of observation. In the eastern Nile Delta, where the land of Goshen, where the Hebrews lived, and the Egyptian royal city of Memphis were located. And I've been to Memphis, by the way, Mennefer, ancient Mennefer. It's a fantastic, interesting place. But according to the point of observation in the eastern delta, where Goshen was, the time is 2.1 hours ahead of longitude 0 at the Greenwich Meridian. So the new moon should have been observable in Egypt at 21:42, 21:42, at plus 2.1 hours. So equaling 23.48 hours, or almost a full day, or 11:48 p.m. Since the 11:48 p.m. was after sunset on April 8th, and sunset was the standard time for the Egyptian priests to declare a new moon upon observing the moon's crescent, they would not have declared a new month that night. Instead, they would have waited until the next night. We covered this a little bit in the last show. This is kind of the stuff we left off on, because it was the evening and the morning were the first day. The evening and the morning were the second day. If you look at creation. In the Hebrew way of thinking, the evening and the morning were the day. And so it would have been declared the next day. So they would have waited till the next night, which for now can be assumed to be April 9th. So, however, the Earth's rotational velocity is varied on 2 prior occasions. Beyond that, we talked about how the sun stood still for a few hours one day. It was from precession. And since the length of all these steps, the position of the sun at the time are unknown, exactly how much time this represents is unclear, but it probably didn't exceed just a few hours when that sun stood still in what we think is a mythological story. It actually did, because of procession. And so I think that it's incredibly interesting. The Lord said on the 10th day of the month, Sunday, the 19th of April, is the date of the Exodus in 1446 BC. We can get it all the way down to the very calendar day, which is interesting. And so now let's make a case for building the date of the Exodus to 1267, which is the late date of the Exodus, which I think is wrong. Any scholar worth their salt should know it's wrong. And this is the date that would have placed the Exodus under Ramses the Great, Ramses II, played by Yul Brynner in the Ten Commandments movie against Charlton Heston's Moses. That's who we've become familiar with, is the Ramses character. And they want to say that Ramses was the pharaoh of the Exodus, just because of a couple of certain things that are scriptural passages we talked about last time. Talks about how the Hebrews built the treasure cities of Pithom and Ramses, or Pi-Ramses. And we've talked about this many times before, and that's what's written in the book of Exodus. Well, that's not what Moses wrote. That's what was rewritten almost 1,000 years later, after the Babylonian captivity, when all the rabbis went to the Library of Alexandria, got permission from the Pharaoh, Ptolemy II, to rewrite their scriptures, to dig into the library and find. So that's how you know that library had to be pretty spectacular. They had some of the Hebrew scriptures there. They had historical scriptures there. That was all part of that library at that time. And so they reconstructed the Old Testament scriptures, but they didn't have the names and the places and the dates and all of that of anything. All we do know is this. They said that pharaohs, that they built the treasure cities of Ramses, of Pithom and Ramses. Well, that was updating the place that existed. What they actually built was the city of Avaris, which lies beneath the cities of Pithom and Ramses. And Ramses just usurped the old city and rebuilt it into his treasure cities. So in a sense, the Hebrews built his treasure cities of Pithom and Ramses. Not originally, they built the original city, which was renamed Pithom and Ramses almost 200 years later. There, boom. We've covered that a million times before in this show, too. And so the case for dating the Exodus to 1267. Some prefer dating the Exodus to that date. They interpreting the 480th figuratively, and actually dating the period of the oppression of the Hebrews in Egypt, the slavery period, and the Exodus to the 15th century BCE has largely been replaced in favor of a 13th century date. And we covered some of this, I believe, last time too. So we have to look at the city of Pi-Ramses. We have to look at also the destruction of Jericho, which we've talked about so many times on the show. I'm going to just give it a brief couple of sentences for those who might be just joining us, haven't heard this before. The destruction of Jericho has been dated by Kathleen Leakey and other archaeologists 100 years ago, excavating at the Tel Dab, I believe it is. And I didn't look it up since I said that last time. But Jericho was destroyed right around the year 1405 BCE, 1406, give or take a year. Now, what would the year that Joshua and the children of Israel have surrounded that city and the walls came tumbling down, as the old Negro spiritual says? Would have been 1405 to 1406 BCE. And now when that city was destroyed, and how do we know that that date took place? That it was that aligns with Joshua? Because the 480th year before the building of Temple 1 was 1446. And if that was the date of the Exodus, it says in the Bible that they wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. And then after Moses died, Joshua takes over. They enter the land, and the first thing they do is they conquer the first city there, the city of Jericho. And Jericho was destroyed 40 years after 1446 BCE. So if that is the date of the Exodus, and Joshua destroyed that city in 1405, there you go. You've got the city destroyed. And it wasn't built up again for 800 years. It was 800 years before the city of Jericho was rebuilt into a major city. Now, if Joshua destroyed the city of Jericho 40 years after the Exodus, and the Exodus took place in 1267 under Ramses, he would have destroyed a city that didn't exist at the time. It was already a destroyed city 150 years earlier. So you see, this is how you start putting all these. Audrey Rowden over in the chat room. Audrey, she says, Scotty, good to see you, Audrey. And so the two options exist for allegorizing the 480th year. The first option is that the number 480 is the sum of 12 eras, consisting of 40-year generations, and 20 years for one generation to live to childbearing age, then 20 years for their children to do likewise. When totaled, these 12 eras of 22 to 25 actual years supply the 288 to 300 years needed to support the late date Exodus theory. And by counting back 300 years from 967, the Exodus dates to around 1267 BC, which falls within the exceedingly long reign of Ramses II. And so the second option for the number, 480, is what Kitchen calls the non-oppressions aggregate theory. You see how they have to make up names for theories to make something fit the way they want it to fit. So here, the 480 years consist of 9 periods of 40 years, or 360 years. The third of which is actually 80 years, 2 times 40, plus 5 aggregate periods of varying lengths. When totaled, the sum is a neat 480 years. So, but they have to make that work to fit that. The third point in this is the inadequacy of interpreting the 480th year allegorically. This is why that is a bunch of hooey, as we say, technically. One weakness with any allegorical interpretation is that in 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 1, the author used an ordinal number, not a cardinal number, making a figurative use even more inexplicable. So another weakness is that the Exodus Pharaoh followed an exceedingly lengthy reign, not boasted one, as does Ramses II. Moses fled from Pharaoh, who sought to execute him for killing an Egyptian. You find that all in Exodus 2:15. Remember, Moses, what does it say? It says Moses and his entourage, it says in rabbinical writings, Moses and his entourage, as a prince of Egypt, came to the mud pits, the mud brick making, and he settled an argument between two Egyptians, and he saw an Egyptian whipping or beating a Hebrew slave, and he murders him and buries him in the sand. Now, as an aside, I'm going to say, it is thought because of that act that Moses may have been taking business into his own hands, thinking he had heard that he was supposed to be the deliverer, and he steps in and thinks he's the prince to the Egyptian people. That's one of the theories behind that. And that fits the mode of the kind of person we see in Moses all throughout Scripture. But now, looking back at this, Moses murders the Egyptian. He flees from Pharaoh. And only after 40 years had passed did the angel speak to him at the burning bush, which immediately follows the statement, in the course of those many days, the king of Egypt died. That's in Exodus chapter 2. So thus the Pharaoh who preceded the Exodus Pharaoh must have ruled far beyond 40 years, a criterion not met by most by the modest reign of Seti I, the father of Ramses II. In contrast, Thutmose III, the father and predecessor of Amenhotep II, who ruled just under 54 years, is the only other pharaoh of the 18th or 19th dynasty to rule for over 40 years. So this factor, combined with all the other evidence, causes one writer to declare Tutmosis III must be the ruler whose death is recorded in Exodus 2:23. All those, Moses, who sought your life are now dead. So says God in the burning bush, or the angel of God in the burning bush. Finally, if 480 merely represents a collection of these equally or non-equally divisible components, what's to prevent the subjective periodization of all other numbers within the scripture? In Exodus 12, 40 and 41, Moses notes that at the end of 430 years to the very day, all the hosts of the Lord departed from the land of Egypt. Does 430 also represent a compilation of time periods? If so, are they divided into 10-year spans? And since the number is indivisible by 20, so is the inclusion of the qualifier to the very day simply to be dismissed as a latter scribal gloss over? And moreover, who is to be trusted to correctly allegorize the number, which otherwise is shrouded in mystery? Opponents of biblical inerrancy, that God is the master author of all scripture, even recognize the folly of such allegorization, with one calling it the devising of ingenious solutions. The most common trick has been to reduce time spans to generations. Thus, the 480 figure must really represent 12 generations. So simply put, no such creative ingenuity is necessary. Then next point we have is that the preference for interpreting the 480 years of 1 Kings 6:1 literally. Now, Kasuto studied ascending and descending Hebrew numbers. As Wood noted from his study, a number written in ascending order, as with 80th and 400 in 1 Kings 6:1, were the smaller number 80th. And it's followed by the larger number 400, 80 and 400. And is always intended to be a technically precise figure linguistically. 80 and 400 years. So moreover, there's no subjectively allegorical use of the 480th. And this justifies the rejection of its natural use, since the advocates of a late Exodus are more driven by arguments from silence about the Israelites and their habitation of Canaan before the 13th century BC than by textual evidence. This number should be taken literally, reinforcing the 1446 BC as the exact year of the Exodus. Then you have the Egyptian chronology. Number 3, precisely dating the pharaonic reigns of the 15th century BCE, the final step before determining whether Amenhotep II is a viable candidate for the Exodus pharaoh. Remember, folks, we're still in the preliminary bulk of information here, the preliminary matter, as we call it. If it's viable that Amenhotep II is the candidate for the Exodus pharaoh, we have to synchronize the date of the Exodus with Egyptian history. So while inspiration of scripture doesn't extend to extra biblical literature or to ancient inscriptions or cultural histories, many extant writings do possess a high degree of trustworthiness. Number 1 is the astronomical date in the Ebers Papyrus. The Ebers Papyrus is an ancient Egyptian manuscript that dates the heliacal sun rising of Sothis to the year 9, month 3, season 3, day 9, 15th of May of Amenhotep I's reign, 1550 to 1529 BCE. Now, it records this astronomical event that fixes its composition to an identifiable time in the 18th dynasty. Now, since astronomers can pinpoint this event by charting the positions of the stars in antiquity, the papyrus can be dated to right around 1541 BCE, making this initial regnal year 1550 BCE of Amenhotep I. So this dating, accepted by numerous Egyptological scholars, is based on the ancient capital of Memphis, or Mennefer, as the point of observation. Despite the and that was the northern capital, by the way, of Egypt, was in Mennefer. It's right at, if you go to Cairo today, Cairo sits roughly you've got the Nile coming up from the south, going to the Mediterranean, then the Nile Delta fan, that rich delta region. Right at the base of that fan down here is Cairo. And about 30 miles south is Mennefer, or Memphis, which you can still visit today. This is where in Memphis, or Mennefer, this is close to where you have the stepped pyramid, places Saqqara, places like that. So, so with all this information, this is how you can see the minutia of detail that gets put into trying to make this stuff all work. Maybe it's the Egyptian gods feeling us out before their return, says Audrey. Maybe. You're talking about all these UFOs being shot down lately. I have a theory about that. Let me break away from this for just a second. I think they're ours. You know what I think is going on with all the UFOs, quote unquote, unidentified flying objects? You know what I think it is, and why it hasn't been cleared up and presented to us? I think these are ours. It might be old junk in the sky. It might be old satellites of ours, or old balloons of ours, whatever they are, that we're destroying now willy-nilly to show that we are on top of all this shit that's going on. When in reality, we're blowing up our own stuff and we know it. That's kind of what I think is going on. So, as fun and fanciful and romantic as it is to think that it's somebody from another world, I can't say that's not a possibility yet. But what I think is going on is the more practical answer. Like Spock used to say, whatever in all your variables out there, the simplest, most direct answer is usually the right one. That's what I think it is. Anyway, let's move on from that. We'll talk about that another night, maybe Wednesday night. We might be back on this on Wednesday night, though, because I don't think I'm just going to do this on Mondays. I'm going to keep doing this till we're done with it. So I really enjoy this stuff, and I hope you do too. To me, going into the history of this illuminates the things that we learned in Sunday school or church. This just brightens all of that and makes it something much more exciting, as far as I'm concerned. All right. So, it has to be a Theban point of observation. A Memphis point of observation, despite the Theban provenance of the papyrus. So a Theban point of observation, which would be in Luxor. Luxor is, ancient Thebes is Luxor. Which is accepted by other Egyptologists, dates the papyrus to about 1523. So another 15-ish years off there, 17 years. That it was celebrated at Alexandria after having been observed at Memphis. Therefore, Memphis is taken to be the correct point of observation for the rising, according to the Ebers papyrus. And so the Egyptians never stated from where they observed the Sothic rising. It's just the Olympiodorus noted in AD 6 that it was celebrated at Alexandria. So now, the reliability of the dating of the 18th dynasty. So even without depending on astronomical dating, the chronology of Egypt in the mid-1400s BCE remains sure. And by the way, I can honestly, this one's for you, Audrey. David Rohl is wrong. So, David Rohl read John's and my book on this, and we had asked him to write a foreword, and he said, "I can't write a foreword on this. You're all simply wrong." Yeah, he's made a movie on it, and a documentary and stuff like that, but he's wrong about the dating of the Exodus. It's his pet date. So now, moving on from that, the reliability of dating the 18th dynasty. So without depending on all the astronomical dating, without depending on the chronology of Egypt in the mid 1400s BC, or depending on that remains solid and sure. The mid 1400s chronology of Egypt. And it's noted that the New Kingdom chronology can be fairly well established on the basis of the monuments, the synchronisms, without recourse to the astronomical material. As for the 18th dynasty, Ward, not John Ward, not my co-author on this book, a different Ward, Ward adds that the 25-year gap separating the current theories on its starting date narrows to a scant 3 or 4 years by the middle of the dynasty. And if you're going back 3,500 years, a mere 3 or 4 years difference on a date is pretty damn spot on. And so meaning that most of the mainstream Egyptologists considered the dating of Egypt's Exodus era history to be fixed and reliable. It's a reliable date. Then you have the regnal dates of the 18th dynasty pharaohs from the time of the Ebers Papyrus to the Exodus, with firm regnal dates for Amenhotep I, the reigns of the subsequent 18th dynasty pharaohs down to Amenhotep II. You're talking about Amos the First, you're talking about Tutmosis the First, Tutmosis the Second, Tutmosis the Third, to Amenhotep II, with Hatshepsut in the middle of all that as well. You've got, it's fixed with all this relative certainty. Tutmosis I, 1529 to 1516. Tutmosis II, his kid, 1516 to 1506. Remember, he died very young. He was sickly. His sister, wife, Hatshepsut, 1506, or 4, right in there in that first couple of years, to 1484 is when she died. Tutmosis III, from 1506, because he was co-regent with Hatshepsut, to 1452 BCE. And then Amenhotep II, 1455 to 1418 BCE. So with these reigns chronologically ordered, the evaluation of Amenhotep II's candidacy for the Exodus pharaoh may now proceed. And that's what we're going to dig into with this series. All of this was not digging into. This was prepping the dig into. And it's now, we've got about 4 minutes left over with the radio audience. And then we're going to do the captain's cabin. So let's hit this. The survival of Amenhotep II during the 10th plague. We may not even get through all of this. Remember the 10th plague of Egypt, the death of the firstborn. It said every household, the firstborn was dead. Why didn't Amenhotep II die? Was he the firstborn son of Tutmosis III is the question. Even though Tutmos is dead now. And now the 10th plague upon Egypt specified that the firstborn of all classes of people, from Pharaoh who sat on the throne to the lowest slave girl behind the millstone, along with the firstborn among the livestock, would all die at the hands of the angel of death, unless you smeared with a piece of hyssop the lamb's blood on the lintels and on the doorposts and the lintel. So being that the throne was included in this edict, one might expect that Pharaoh himself, if he actually was the firstborn son of his father, which was the normal protocol for succession under Egypt's dynastic rule, would have died alongside the other firstborn during this last and most terrible plague. Now, this is if we are putting literal interpretation to the plague of death, that it is a miracle, one of those negative miracles of God. But since the Exodus Pharaoh obviously lived through the final plague, he couldn't have been the king's eldest son, a title of the Egyptians liberally used for the Pharaoh of the eldest son, who stood in line behind his father as the heir apparent to the Egyptian throne. Therefore, in order for Amenhotep II to qualify as a legitimate candidate for the Exodus Pharaoh, he could not have been the king's eldest son, Thutmose III's eldest son. Amenhotep indeed would have survived the 10th plague because he was not the firstborn son of Thutmose III. So in the words of Redford, the idea that Amenhotep II was the eldest son of Thutmose III does not seem possible in the light of our present knowledge. So toward the middle of the Thutmose III's reign, in year 24, the heir to the throne was not Amenhotep II, who died before he could assume the throne. In an inscription from the Karnak Festival Hall that dates to year 24 of Thutmose III's reign, Amenemhet. Some of these names, the vowels and consonants seem so out of place. Amenemhet was being appointed to an administrative position in the Temple of Amun, appointing the king's eldest son, Amenemhet, as overseer of the cattle. And since Amenemhet probably was no longer a child when the inscription was composed, he would have been born fairly early in the co-regency of Thutmose III and Hatshepsut. Therefore, Amenhotep II would not have died during the 10th plague, as the record bears out that he was not the firstborn son of Thutmose III. That's a point worth making in the biblical storyline. Okay, guys, now guess what? We're done with the radio audience. We got to say goodnight to the radio audience. Radio over there on subspace.radio. Thanks for being here. We will see you again tomorrow night. Join us over in the YouTube channel for the Captain's Cabin. Live long and prosper.
Join us every weeknight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. The Intrepid Radio Program, a Scotty Roberts Productions broadcast.
Well, welcome to the captain's cabin, folks. This is our after show. It be hoist the mizzen mast. No, climb the mizzen mast. Hoist the mizzen sail. Swab your decks and be prepared to be boarded. So, captain's cabin. Welcome, folks. Sure glad you can be here. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, this after show was so dubbed the captain's cabin by you, our listeners, at least a year and a half ago, I want to say. The chronology on that might be weak, but there it is. So thank you all for being here. Thanks for sticking around. I hope you've been enjoying this stuff on AMENHOTEP III, because I do. I really enjoy this stuff. I love digging into this history. And if you know anything about the history at all, this illuminates the stories. And I love this about it. So everybody who's here, welcome again. Michelle Canham-Free, I see you made it in. I don't know if my friend Catherine's still here or not. Matthew Sainsbury, Barbie D, Steve Clark. I think Uncle Dave is still here. And we've got at least 12 of you showing your faces in the chat room. So many more out there. If you want to show your face too, you can. Come on by and join in. Hey, Catherine, you're still here. Good to see you. I'm glad you're here. I really am. Warms my heart to see you here. And so tomorrow, folks, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, tomorrow is Valentine's Day. And if you have not taken care of business for Valentine's Day, then you should go do that. I have my wife of now, let's see, we've been married 7 years. We're in our 16th year of marriage. We've known each other for 18. We've been together for 18 years. This is a little thing I did for her, and some years I forget about it. Some years it's been packed away on things, but this right here, this little book right here is something that I made for her. This is an old picture of ours that was taken back in 2005, and I put it on this book back in 2000. Was the year 2006? It says here. You can't even read it anymore unless you shine the light on it, and it illuminates what I had written there, and I can't even make out what it says. Oh, will you? What does that say? Will you stay with me? Will you be my love? Valentine's 2006 is when I gave her this little book. And so, hey, Goddess Justice, good to see you. I do too, Steve. I really enjoy doing this kind of show. But this book has stuff in it that I would write for her. And there's an old flower in there that's pressed in there from the original date of this book. We got old pictures of us I put in there and things I wrote. I've got little portraits I did of Rainey along the years. This one was in, what year was that? Make Valentine. In other words, all I'm saying is make Valentine Day. Oh, this is February of 2009. So that was 2 years after we were married. So make Valentine's Day something special. When we had our first son, Flynn, I got pictures of Flynn and Sam. You all know Sam, and homemade Valentines and things like that. Little things you put in these. Why don't you try doing something like that for your loved one? Homemade Valentines, things like that. So February 14th of 2020, more drawings and things. So do something like that. Think of something unique and special and something that's going to mean something over the years. So let's see. Molly will get extra grain. Angelina and Jean will get a steak apiece. Nice. That's your Valentine's with your family of animals there, Steve. That's nice to hear. So we won't make it a long Captain's Cabin tonight. I don't have an hour show planned out. These days, I seem to feel awfully worn out these days. A lot more tired than usual. And I was at my doc the other day, and doesn't seem to be any problems of any kind. Just tired out, burning it at both ends. And so we aren't going to go super late tonight. And mostly this is a time for me to just say, hey, thanks for being here and thanks for listening. Watch for some changes we're going to be making. There are some interesting things coming up where we're going to be rebranding this show and find different ways to put it out there and different platforms and possibly even different ways to make it work. So I want to get back to the roots of this show. We've drifted off of that a bit over the years. I've been doing this show since 2000 in one form or another. And some years not doing it at all. I've been going with this iteration or this version of Intrepid Radio for about 4 years now. And as I just mentioned the other day, and that was through Odyssey Radio. And now we're with Subspace Radio, which is just a rebranding of Russ's old Odyssey Radio. And Odyssey is now owned by Ron Phillips. And so Russ now has Subspace Radio. And so I'm back with Russ. And, it's an enjoyable time. I like doing radio, as you can tell, because I like to talk. It's easy to get on the air and talk. But I'll be very honest. There's some days where I'm like, I got to get on radio. I don't even feel like it tonight. And last Friday, when I took Friday off, I had a bunch of junk going on. And I was just like, I can't do this tonight. I waited until 8 o'clock to announce that I couldn't do last Friday's show because I was just wrestling with it. Wanted to do radio, didn't want to do radio on Friday and wasn't feeling up to it. So I was actually typing it out at about 8 o'clock on Friday night saying, oh, dang it, we aren't doing radio tonight. So that's the way it is here sometimes too. So what else we got going on tonight? I'm thinking about, we could talk about a little bit more about these UFOs being shot down. I don't think UFO means anything other than unidentified flying object. Remember, the Air Force or the military has already changed that to UPIs. Is it UPI? Unidentified, whatever. You know what it is. The new name they have for them. And I never use it. That's why I can't remember what it is. They're not using that term. They're using UFO, the old term, because it's just an unidentified flying object. And I think there might be something to the use and the changing of those terms as well. But what I think what you are seeing going on is we're shooting down our own hardware. And I think we are shooting down our own hardware and not telling anybody that we know that we're shooting down our own hardware, because I don't think we want anybody to know that we're shooting down our own hardware. All I think this administration is trying to do right now is show the United States that we're in action. We're doing something. We're shooting down these things as soon as we see them. And you know what I think that is? I think it's us shooting down our own shit. So that's my take on UAP. There it is, Sarah. Thank you. Unidentified aerial phenomenon. And so, that's what I think is going on. And it's all a political move. It's all something to play games. That's what this administration does best. They play games with us. And why do you think... Why is Biden, who says he's so virile, he's so with it, he's got so much verve and so much life that he hops around running to helicopter one, and things like that. He's trying to convince the whole world that he is fit to be president and will be fit in 2 years to be president again for another term. But he's not fit enough to give us an answer. He can't come outside and speak to the press on this because he doesn't have the answers. He doesn't know what he's doing. And this is that's it. You look at how he speaks of himself, then look at how he talks about everything else. I don't think. Well, you all know what I think. I don't think Joe Biden should be sitting in the office of the presidency, not because of his political persuasion, not because of his ideologies, if he even has any left. I don't think he should be there simply by virtue of the fact that he is not fit for office. And they're covering that up as best they can. How can they even cover it up is my question. They can't. Everybody knows. They're not even actively covering it up. They're covering his ass is what they're doing, not covering up the story, because everybody knows that he's not fit for the presidency of the United States. But yet, there he is. So what do you do with that? There we go. I've got Dave Potter hanging in the wings. Uncle Dave. We're going to bring in Uncle Dave. Uncle Dave, how you doing? How you doing? Hey, why don't you talk to all these fine people for a minute? I am going to go take a commercial break, as Kenny Ballos would say.
Oh, sure. Just dump me out and say, oh, here, I've been sitting there for 5 minutes, and you just dump me out
Dave,
and say, hey, talk to everybody while I go pee.
You're on. All right, here we go. I'm going to let you get on. So,
what I find strange about all these unidentified things that they're shooting down is how they're described. They're not being described as balloons. The one over Canada was described as a cylinder. The one over Michigan was described as an octagon-shaped thing. So clearly the fighter pilots know if they're shooting down a balloon or not. So what's up with that? I don't understand that. If they're weather balloons sent up by some university or corporation or private science group, well, then they would know their balloon had been disabled and shot down, because all of a sudden the telemetry from it would all suddenly end. And yet nobody's coming out and saying, hey, our balloon was shot down yesterday. So I don't think that they're shooting down university balloons or what have you. I don't know what they're shooting down. I don't know that they're actually shooting down anything. They're saying they're shooting down stuff, but we don't have any wreckage from any of it. We don't have any debris that we can find. It's highly suspicious that suddenly there's just object after object after object for several days in a row, when in 40 or 50 years we've never heard of anything. And then they're coming out and saying, oh, well, we've been tracking them for years, but we didn't know what they were. What kind of idiots are they then? They put balloons up all the time. They should know what a balloon looks like when it's on the radar screen. And I look at the people that are claiming to identify it, and they said we've never shot anything down over the United States before. And I'm thinking, well, in 1947, you shot something down over Roswell, New Mexico. And in the early 60s, or maybe it was in the 70s, they shot something down that went down in Mexico, and the U.S. retrieved it before the Mexican government could get to it. I don't know what that was. Why are our planes, if it's in Canada, why is Trudeau asking our planes to come and shoot it down? He has his own Air Force. Why did they shoot it down? That doesn't make any sense either. And when you look at him on the videotape saying, he seems completely dispassionate about it. He's just reading off a teleprompter. There was an object in the sky, and I learned about it. Wouldn't you have a little more passion to it? He was more passionate about truckers in the capital than he was about something flying over his country that he couldn't identify.
I noticed that about Trudeau. He was like, my kid went to school today, and the buses were late, and we had a little bit of snow, and we shot down some UFOs, and then
like you do. Just another day at the office in Canada.
Thank you for letting me take advantage of you and taking that break.
It's not like it was anything incredible, like terrorist truck drivers honking their horns in the capital city.
That's right. Yeah. Thank God they weren't truck
Which
drivers. Yeah.
which
They
I
treated
still
those
look at that
UFOs
whole
like they
thing.
treated truck drivers.
Which I still look at that whole thing, and when they came out and said, "Oh, we've got to stop these truck drivers," what the truck driver should have said is, "Well, you don't want us in your town. That's not a problem.
We just
Get in their
won't do
rigs, drive out, and just say, no trucks enter this town again.
There you go.
In 4 days, there's no groceries, there's no fuel, there's nothing."
Yep.
And just sit out there and go, "Oh, no. You're afraid of us. You don't want us in your town. We're not coming. We don't want to scare you people.
Right.
You're on your own. You can fly
Cheers.
everything in. Jack your prices up times 10.
Yeah, that's what could have been done. Of course, they're a little different governmental system over there. They were going to
What, are
throw
they
them
going
all
to
in
force
jail.
the trucks in? Can't force the trucks to do. It's the same. I look here. If people want to get all pissy at the farmers and stuff, all the farmers have to do is stop shipping their food to New York and Chicago and the other big cities.
Yep.
You know, it's like, why are you pissing on the farmers? Don't piss on the farmers.
Don't
The
piss
farmers
off
are your
farmers
lifeblood.
either. Yeah.
It's like that 20-year-old millennial that was complaining about farming. That's, we should get rid of farming. It's a danger to the environment.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And,
It's like,
and it's like, and you know, his statement was something like, "Well, it's not like we live in the 1800s.
That
We can
just
go to the
goes to
grocery
show
stores for
you
food now. We don't
that
need farmers."
any conceivable bit of idiocy can be pumped out there and put into the news, into the mainstream thinking. And there's some people I look at and I go, you know, this dude doesn't even deserve to have his words listened to.
Yeah,
He's kind of dumb. Just
kinda.
Yeah. So what's everybody else doing? This is very informal. By the way, Captain's Cabin, the post show, very informal.
It's the way we roll, baby.
It's the way we roll. And I've almost got it down to where my kids don't come and make as many familial interruptions during the actual airtime of the show. But tonight they had scouts. They were all gone to scouts until the beginning of the show. So I didn't see many of them.
Uncle Dave's freaking out.
Yeah.
Sorry. So I had napped, and I have one clock that I've never readjusted, so it's an hour ahead. And I woke up and said, "Oh, it's almost 9 o'clock." And I pulled you up on YouTube, and I was the only one there. And then Field Guy entered, and I'm like, okay. And it's,
wow, I beat Field Guy in.
My clock says it's 10 after, and I'm like, no, Scotty. So I drop him a text. "Hey, where are you? Are you sleeping?" And I drop Rainey a text, and she doesn't reply. And I'm like, what the hell? So I tried calling Scott and got a voicemail.
We were on an Uncle Dave boycott.
Tried calling Rainey,
and
I got a voicemail, and I texted Rowan, "Hey, where are your folks? Why aren't they at home?" She's like, "They are at home, I think." And and so I'm like, what the hell? What's going on?
Well,
and then I realized, oh, it's only 8. Never mind. Then, and as soon as I realized what's going on, Scotty's texting me, Rainey's texting me, "What's going on? What's going on? Is everything okay?" Yeah, Uncle Dave's just an idiot. You all go on about your business.
You all just go about your business. So I want to say hey to Lisa Marie Stucci, who just made it in here.
Hey,
Did you happen to
Lisa
see your
Marie.
brother today, Lisa, by any chance? He came up here, he visited his folks, and he stopped over here and saw Rainey and me. And then Lisa was like, "Hey,
what am I, chopped liver?"
She says, "Hey." And so who else came in? Susie Q is back. Good to see you, Susie Q. Canning hamburger. You're canning hamburger? I've never heard of that. I suppose it would be like canning any sauce or something if you can can hamburger.
You could can hamburger.
I suppose. Why not?
Hey, so so let's say you have like 20 pounds of hamburger in the fridge, because sometimes you do. And it's like, hey, you got to cook that off, but you don't want to cook anything with hamburger right now. You can brown it all off, put a little onion in it, maybe even hit it with a little salt and pepper and garlic, so it's real basic. Freeze it up by the pound or what have you, or can it, and now you have something you can at any moment dump in the frying pan, Add taco seasoning to it, and you got tacos. Add red sauce to it, and you got a spaghetti sauce. Add beans and whatever, and you got a chili. And it just makes for quick cooking down the road.
Could you add tomatoes and make a spaghetti sauce?
I just said that.
Oh, okay, I missed one of them.
I said
And
red
then
sauce.
we have shrimp. We have shrimp souffle. We can have shrimp soup. We can
Get
have
your
shrimp
gumbo,
pate.
like fried
We can have
shrimp,
fried
and you
shrimp, barbecued shrimp.
stuffed
We can have
shrimp.
stuffed shrimp.
Gotta throw your lip out
Broiled.
there when you do that.
Got have broiled shrimp, and we can have all kinds of shrimp, and that's about it.
That's funny.
So,
But yeah, I do that every once in a while.
Susie Q is 25 pounds today. 25 pounds of meat can today. Holy cow.
Because sometimes you have 25 pounds of meat hanging around and you got to do something with it.
Got to do something with it. Rainey actually went to a meat sale yesterday at, I think it was at Aldi's. I want to say it was Aldi's because she got something like 23 pounds of meat or something like that. So
the other thing that we have here in the Midwest, especially in Wisconsin, and you don't see it when you get outside of, like, I mean, I've seen it in Minneapolis, or in Minnesota, and in Wisconsin, and occasionally in Iowa. Those are the three states I know of it in. Oh, I think I saw it once in South Dakota. Meat raffles. You don't run into meat raffles at bars.
Meat raffles.
Elsewhere.
Get your raffle ticket. This is some of the best meat from Anderson's farm, and you're going to be able to make some great casseroles for after.
And they'll have like a half a cow sometimes, and they'll raffle it off, or they'll just have 25 pounds of steaks or whatever.
We got 2 freezers now, Sarah. I got to put my glass on. I keep leaning in because I can't read it, the chat room from that far away.
I'm on the phone, and the image is smaller.
Yeah, we got a second freezer. We got the box freezer, a little box freezer. It's about 4 feet. Thereabouts, about 4 feet by 3 feet, and but Rainey picked up a free freezer somewhere on one of the marketplaces, an upright freezer for out in the garage as well. So yes, we'll be able to. And that was the sad thing, folks. If you didn't hear the sad, woeful tale, Rainey goes up. Well, every year for the last 2 years now, so it's twice annually. Her sister lives up in Alaska with her husband who's stationed up there and their kids. And so Rainey went up to visit them in Alaska last year. And she fished they went salmon fishing in the river.
This is so depressing.
And she brought home like 85 pounds of salmon, which was very cool. And we only had eaten maybe 20 pounds worth of that. There had to be 60 pounds still in the freezer. We ate more than that. It might be the other way around. And then she went up again last August, and she took Flynn with her, our 13-year-old boy, and they went fishing up there, and they brought home another 80 pounds of salmon. And that was all in that box freezer. And after we moved into this house in September, somebody along the way, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but it wasn't apparent in this house. Somebody unplugged that deep freezer. And we discovered it. It was in the fall when we discovered it. It was still warmish outside. And all that.
Because if it had happened this time of year, it would have been no big deal. It would still been frozen.
This time of year wouldn't have bothered us. But we lost over 110 pounds of salmon, along with various other meats and things we had in the deep freeze. Gone. And who knows how long that had been. There was like a melted sludge at the bottom of the freezer. So we knew nothing's good here.
Yeah.
And so everything got thrown. But there you go.
So sad.
It was a sad day. And it was, by the way, I don't know if I ever thanked him publicly in detail. It was our own Steve Clark here in the chat room that sent us a little gift. They said, here, maybe this will help you replenish some of that meat you lost. And so I just want to mention that to everybody. That was really nice of Steve.
And that's probably because that fish smell will linger for months. That's probably why the bear was out there that night looking for
that bear that attacked me in my driveway. Yeah. That's probably why he was there.
Yeah, it's just a salmon house. I kind of smell some like fresh salmon. Is that their salmon here?
Yeah, just a salmon place. And he rushed me, man.
You smell like fish.
Mm. He rushed me, knocked me down, and then took off. He just vanished into thin air.
The bears.
Yeah, folks, if you don't, I'll give away the secret on that one. So it got pretty icy here a couple of months back, and I'm walking down to the street to pull the trash cans up. So it had to be
Like
a
you do.
Monday, or it had to be a Tuesday. And so I walked down there to the end of the drive, and our drive has a slight incline, and then it hits it at the bottom, you know, a little steeper. Not far, just a few feet of that. And I'm walking down, and it's icy, and I'm
enough.
being careful. I'm doing my Joe Biden walk along the driveway in the ice, and I slipped. Shoop down, wham. And I laid there for a second going, oh, man. I'm laughing out loud, and I stick a leg
It was
up
somewhere
in the
between
air.
the Charleston and the Jitterbug.
Yeah, it was something like that. So, and I stuck a leg up to get the momentum going, the balance, and I hoisted myself up, stood up, and brushed off, and I was a little achy from that for a couple of days. I hit my all of my junk, not just my junk.
But since the
Pretty
old
hard on the
geezer
drive.
didn't break a hip, Rainey decided in the morning it was safe to play the video from
That's right. Rainey
from
called
the-
up
from the security camera.
the security camera we have, and looking out front, and
Because she loves you.
because she loves me. She said, I first had to make sure Scotty was okay, and once I knew he was, then I could laugh and put up this video. And there I was, sure enough, wandering down a little bit away from the light. You can kind of see it, and shoom, bang, looked like a Fred Flintstone fall. Bam. And so the next day after that, I took a still of that, and I put a big bear coming in off the side. And I'm a Photoshop guru, guys. I'll be modest and say I'm a Photoshop guru. So I put in a bear attacking me as I'm falling. And I said, Rennie didn't want to reveal these facts because she didn't want anybody to think I couldn't handle myself with a bear. But the bear took me down and then ran off.
Yeah.
Catherine says, luckily the camera was off, so no evidence. Well, for you, I fell off the tailgate of my 3/4 ton pickup a couple of weeks ago, unloading groceries, says Catherine. Landed flat on my butt in the driveway. Oh, damn. I've done that. I've fallen when you land flat on your butt and you just do that hard fall. I did that when I was out in Louisiana doing some roofing a couple of years ago, and I fell off the ladder to the bunk bed. Wham! Right smack on my butt. I was shook up for days. I actually had to go to the chiropractor with that one. I've never had that happen before like that. I could not stand up straight for a day. And then finally I went in. But Catherine, you got any residual effects of landing on your ass in the driveway? But luckily the camera was off. And she says on about 4 inches of ice, whammy. Luckily I have lots of padding. Yeah, me too. Different kinds of padding, I'm sure, but aligned differently. So, see a wallet-shaped bruise on my left butt cheek. Nice. Yeah, I wear my wallet in my left leg zipper pocket of my cargo pants. So, of which I have about 20 pairs. So, it's always in the side. Hi. And I remember Dave being incapacitated several times.
Oh, yeah. Well, I fell off a loading dock.
Yeah, well, you fell off a loading dock once about 20 years ago at the big house in Bloomington.
I just slept on your couch. I don't know what incapacity. That was the worst night. And that I had to go to the hospital with that one.
Hey, Michelle Kenham, freedom. Good to see you.
And I can't even blame that on a blonde or a redhead. That was just a bad night. I slept in a weird position.
I can't blame my back ailments on the blonde or the redhead. So, folks, I'm glad a bunch of you are still here. That's kind of nice. In Captain's Cabin. This is not the official show for anybody just joining us. This is the after show. It's the afterglow of the show. So I hope you're enjoying yourself. We hope to get this, whatever this wiring thing is, taken care of. I've got a couple of guests that we're going to be speaking with on the show coming up.
Cool.
And I think you'll enjoy them. And let's see, what else have I got on my brain? My brain is getting closer and closer to pea-sized today. So,
well, I hear that.
I was grumpy at Krabby this morning. And it's a good thing this is not the Scotty and Rainey show, or she'd be agreeing with me. Too vociferously. I was crabby. Man, those kids were not on time this morning. And I'm like, kids, if I'm driving you to school, I said, I get up, I get dressed, I get coffeeed up, I get clothed and in my right mind in order to take you guys to school. I would make you breakfast like I used to do all the time for my older three kids. These three don't like getting up. And I say, so I do all that in the morning.
It's so weird.
For my kids. It's just different values, I guess. And my second set of three. But different things they appreciate. They like to eat. They like to eat breakfast at school. That's it. Then go to school. They serve a whole breakfast there now. I want to go to school and eat breakfast. And
yeah, that's weird too.
I tried that a couple times with these kids, and as Dave can attest, we've talked about this before. I used to get up every morning and make breakfast for my older three kids, and we'd always be up an hour and a half before school started. People go, "Oh, that just doesn't happen. That's not right. I don't believe that story." Well, it's true. And Dave came when I was in England for 2 weeks back in 2005. This is before I knew Rainey, before we were together. March of 2005. And I went to England, and Uncle Dave came over. And he cooked meals for them. I don't know if you did breakfasts or not. Or did you spend the nights and do breakfasts? But I had a whole agenda all lined up for all the people who would come and watch the kids. And in 2005, my daughters were like 13, and my twins, and Sam was like, he's 9 years younger, so he was 13 from 4 thereabouts. And I came back from England. That's when within a couple of months I was dating Rainey. So that middle of 2005. But so I do that now for my kids, but they don't want to do it. We don't want to get up. I tried it once with these kids, Dave, a few years ago, maybe 3 years ago. Let's get up in the morning. Let's have breakfast. Nobody enjoyed it. Everybody's up too early. I could be sleeping. I don't know why I'm here. And whereas, like Abby and Bryn, they were like, "Good morning, Dad. What's for breakfast? What are we doing today?" We always did stuff like omelets or pancakes or French toast, or every morning it was something different. And we'd cycle around, and I enjoyed that. It was our time to hang together. And so, but these kids would rather sleep in and go eat school breakfast. So I have to see if I can change that around with them somewhere here. Maybe you have to lead into it from the summer or something. So
I just can't get around school breakfast. That just sounds gross.
I know. So it's not hard to make
food from the government.
Making an omelet for breakfast is a nothing thing. Mix up eggs, put a little milk in it. I do. I would chop up meat if we got any meat like ham, or even lunch meat ham. Smoked ham, dice some of that stuff up, throw it in the egg with cheese. Boom, you're done. And let's have omelets.
I have one parent that would eat pancakes every morning, but just one parent, and that's the only person that likes them. So,
I made pancakes all the time.
Yeah,
so
pancakes for one is a huge pain.
Catherine says, school food is gross. I used to work in a school kitchen. Catherine, my wife, Rainey, worked in the school kitchens here earlier.
Yeah, and after her horror stories, I wouldn't let the kids eat there.
Yeah. That wasn't even in the fall. Was that in the spring? I guess we moved into this house in September. So I think it had to be the end of the school year last year. But she worked there and she saw some stuff. She quit. She walked out. My wife is no slouch. She doesn't take anybody's bullshit. And she was getting bullshit from some people. And she's like, look, she goes, I'm 43 years old. I don't need bullshit from anybody. 42 at the time. And she said, I got better things to do than put up with your bullshit. And, oh, you're just, and she goes, don't even. And then, but she calls me and she's crying. She's like, I just walked out because this and this. She said, I don't need this bullshit. And I said, you're right. I support you. But one of the things she noticed in the 10 days that she worked there, and she only did that because she wanted to be there when our youngest, Ellery, who was 7 when she was working there, is 8 now. She wanted to be there to be able to spend lunchtime with our daughter. So our daughter could see her every day at school. There's Rainey and Ellery are like attached at the hip. And, so you did too, Catherine. Now you walked out one day. Yeah. And there was stuff she saw in that period of time where, people would like drop hamburger buns on the floor of a kitchen, and picked it up and put it right back on the thing. And Rainey said, did you just... Yeah, but I used my rubber gloves, she said.
But the floor doesn't have a rubber glove on it.
Yeah. Oh, don't worry about the floor then. Yeah, you're good.
It's just
you used your rubber glove to pick it up.
They lick school bus seats. It's okay.
Yes. Well, and they had mice. I don't know if they had rats or if they had mice that had hit the school over the summer. So yeah, this had to be early in September last year, just before we moved over here to the other, just across the tracks, so to speak. Same school district, and to a bigger house over here. But needless to say, there was so much crap she saw take place in the kitchen that was just like, you can't serve that. And she was basically treated like, you haven't been here long enough to say anything. And yada, yada.
Yeah, that's not how it works in a kitchen. Sorry, that one on the floor, it goes in the trash.
Yep, goes in the trash.
We have a really tight budget. Buns aren't that expensive, and your budget isn't that tight.
Nope.
It's like, that's bullshit.
It is. The 5-second rule. If it's less than 5 seconds on the floor, it's good, says Steve. But not in public school. You can't do that.
Not in a commercial kitchen.
I might do it. I don't know that I'd pick up a bun off of a commercial kitchen floor and eat it. I wouldn't do that.
Well, I bet it's cleaner than anyone's home kitchen floor. But just the same, you can't legally do that.
I got chewed out for washing my hands too much. I was using too much soap. Hey, we don't have the budget for that. You only have to wash your hands 2 times a shift. That's all we got budget for.
Yeah, that ain't how that works either nowadays.
So, who are you saying happy Halloween to? Halloween. Valentine. This sounds so much alike. Sweetie. Halloween, Valentine. Or as Mr. T says, Happy Valentine's Day. So, soap costs money, Yeah, it does. Ay. Happy Valentine's Day to you too, Susie Q. Where you are, well, it's 10:40 here. So, yeah, Valentine's Day. I'm gonna have to get the one up on my wife tomorrow morning. So make her day special. So let's see, is it a special Valentine's before the kids go to school or after? I think when they're all gone. So if it hits my floor, the dogs would have it before I even get it. Yeah. I got a friend who's got dogs. And those dogs are like, they're the sweetest, nicest dogs you'd want to know. But for food, they're all big dogs, like a Vizsla and not a bloodhound. He looks like a bloodhound, but I think Vizsla probably. And they hover. They're just right there. They'll grab it right off your plate while you're sitting at the table if you're not watching. So my dog gets yelled at if she begs. Our little pug, we have a pug mini English bulldog mix for those of you not in the know. And she'll just sit and stare at you. And I mean, it's disconcerting. She's not as small as a pug. She's a little bigger. She doesn't have quite the smushed pug. She looks pug, but she's, more mini English bulldog in there. And she will just sit there and stare at you. While you're eating. And it's disconcerting. And hey, Lucy, go eat your own food. And she barks at me like, oh. I'm like, don't you talk back to me. Go eat your own food. So, boxer and a Germany Shepherd. Yeah, there you go. Big dogs, they'll take your food from you. All right, guys, I said this was going to be a short Captain's Cabin tonight, not a full hour. We're going on 45 minutes. Oh, and there's Field Guy. Let's bring him in. Thanks, Field Guy. Just ruined my exit.
Oh, you were leaving?
No, I'm going to sign out of here pretty soon. I just got nothing left. I got nothing original, nothing witty, nothing
I fell asleep
or perspicacious. So
I was listening to the show. I fell asleep.
How are you doing, Field Guy?
Oh,
I'm doing good.
He's awake now.
Yeah, I just woke up. I was like, oh shit.
Lots of, what is that? Lots of F Valentine cards left, Scotty, at Walmart. Yeah, I'll bet. That's what we do. We just get, I sent Rainey a kid Valentine one year. I didn't go out and get her the special, dozen roses and the Valentine card. What did I get her? It's in here somewhere, I think. Oh, no, I made her one. I made her that one. So,
back in the day, I thought I'd be all romantic when I was dating Susie, and I had gone out shopping earlier and bought all this stuff on the 13th, and then after everybody went to bed, I got up and I made a trail of rose petals from the dining room to the bed and covered her in rose petals and stuff, and had all this stuff on the dining room table for her. So when she woke up in the morning, she woke up in the morning with rose petals stuck to her face.
Nice. Nice.
It looked a lot less romantic than I envisioned.
Oh, here's the ones I got her. I think this was 2 years in a row. We had leftover 3D looking Harry Potter. And so I did a Valentine for her on that one. And one with Dumbledore. And so
from me to her?
No. These are from me to her, jackass.
Well, you used the Dumbledore. That's
I got you. So yeah, there's lots left, Lisa Marie. Stoochie. So see, this is all our stuff that all in this little book. I cram all this little stuff in there. That was our here. What year was this? This is it's not scintillating radio, but I just happen to have this in front of me. March 10th of 2007. We weren't even married yet. We had our Gaelic Storm tickets at the Fine Line Music Cafe. So
Yep.
we were married October of 2007. So there's old letters in here and old. What is that? What is that? That looks like an official piece of paper folded up. Oh, you know what else is in this book? The one time we went to marriage counseling back about 12 years ago, trying to get through conflicts, managing conflicts. Here, let's see what this says for all of you
No,
who
let's
have.
not. Let's not dig up that again.
What do you mean again? This is typewritten. This is out of a book. Managing conflicts, prerequisites for relationship success, and 10 habits that enable partners to meet them. This could be a whole show that we did. Managing conflicts, prerequisite 1, soft startup. Predictive habit, avoiding a judgmental attitude. I think that's a good way to manage conflicts. Avoid judgmental attitudes. Predictive habit 2, standing up for yourself without putting your partner down. And so I guess the whole thing of that, I'm better than you and anything you can do, I can do better, doesn't count there. Prerequisite 2, accepting. Prerequisite 1 was soft startup. It means you come with no judgment and you don't come to insult the other person. Prerequisite 2, accepting influence. Predictive habit 3 is finding the understandable part. That's where you have to go rather than jump. And we talked about this on the show before, this stuff. But what do you do when you're in conflict with your partner? Do you always point the finger? Or do you look for the understandable part? That's the hard part, especially for guys. Well, for women too. It's looking at the other person and going, I really hate this, and I really want to have a fight with you, but I have to understand the understandable part that you're presenting. And we scowl at it. Number 4, giving equal regard to each other's understandable parts. So there you go. Prerequisite 3 is 1 was soft startup, 2, accepting influence, 3, effective repair. And the predictive habit number 5 is offering assurances. Then prerequisite 4 is respecting your partner's dreams, holding on to your own predictive habit. Number 6, understanding and explaining what is at stake. And then there's connecting during non-conflict times. That's important. Connection during non-conflict times. Prerequisite 5 positives for every negative. So every negative you bring up about your spouse or your partner or whoever, you have to bring every one negative, you have to bring up 5 positives. Could you do that?
Oh, I don't know.
Anybody out there listening? Lisa Marie Stucci, in typical throw the sofa at somebody, Lisa Marie Stucci habit, smack him upside the head, she says. Catherine says, my grandpa did that to my grandpa about 1962 or so with a cast iron skillet. Boom! I once stereotypically got hit in the head with not a cast iron, but a frying pan. That was, Dave, you knew her. That was Annette that did that back in 1992. So 30 years after your grandma did that to your grandpa, Catherine. Let's see. So 5 positives for every 1 negative that you bring up. And the predictive habits, there's 4 of them. Curiosity about your partner's world. Go, hey, so what went on in your world today? That was my example of how that's to be done, guys. So what's going on today? What's for dinner? What's for dinner is not a curiosity about your partner's lifetime. Let's see. The second one is keeping sight of the positive. Always keep that in sight. See, now I'm a positive person. I have my moments. I have my bitchy moments, my complaining moments, my I'm going to cry in my soup moments, and oh, woe is me moments, and damn it, listen to me moments. But overall, I'm a pretty positive guy, I think. I have people in my life that have kept me from being positive. Certain people come to mind automatically. You all know who those are for you, but pretty positive kind of guy. So keeping sight of the positive. Number 4 is pursuing shared meaning. Wendy Robertson and I talked on Tuesdays. We have Robertson at 4 p.m. in the afternoon. Wendy Robertson, my friend from England, my longtime, almost 2-decade-long friend over in England. She and I do a show. She's in London. I'm here in Wisconsin at 4 p.m. on Tuesdays, 5 p.m. Eastern.
It's an excellent show.
Let's see. 4 p.m., 3 p.m. Mountain Time. That'd be 2 p.m. Left Coast.
By the way, excellent piece of artwork you did on her.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I was thinking for a second. What are you talking about? I didn't draw anything.
Her in the red coat.
You said, nice piece of artwork you did on her. I'm like, when did I draw on Wendy?
Of her, on her, whatever.
Oh, that was a long time ago.
Well, that's the first time I'd seen it.
Yes, thank you. The red coat. Red coat Wendy. Yes. Thank you very much. And that was, I like to say, that's, I've got this thing about, because I'm a traditional artist. I'm a watercolor. I'm a pencil, pen and ink. I don't do oils anymore. I haven't done oils for years. Acrylics, gouaches, things like that. Then I am also a digital artist. I can do digital art.
And that's something I just can't do.
I like doing digital art. It's fun. Here, I'll show you all the picture of Wendy that I did. But it's a digital piece. And so it's not something that is... I have a hard time like signing a piece like that because it's not the same thing as painting a picture. And I still haven't gotten over that hump yet. But let's see. Where is it? I can't. So I don't like this now. My computer grays out everything until you click on it. So I'm going to put on my glasses so I can read it. Let's see. It's in the Robertson folder, I do believe. I can see it. It's this big. It's like a 1/16 of an inch tall, but I can see it because it's red. Let's see. Let's see if I got the final in here. There's that one. Yeah, there's the final. Wait, that's his copy. Enhanced. That's the one right there. All right. Let me open this up, and I'll show you guys what Uncle Dave is talking about. Now, this is digital art that I do as opposed to your traditional art. It's still art. It's just, you don't get messy with paint, and you don't get messy with paint. And if you make a mistake, you can go, oh, erase, or you go back 25 steps and go, oh, now I got to do that over. It's digital, but there are, I ran my agent, Italia Gandolfo, my literary agent. She said, you ought to really get into doing more digital design work because she said, there are some artists out there. Did I lose Dave?
He dropped out a minute or two ago.
Oh, here he is.
He should be popping back in.
Stupid effing streamline.
Yeah, why I oughta.
It's been glitching lately.
I moved the phone, and all of a sudden I'm out. I'm just gone. I'm like, what the?
I've done that when I have worked on when I've done like Kenny's show or something in the morning, filling in for Kenny.
It pops out.
I was going to say what this picture of Wendy reminds me of is that Disney sci-fi thing they did on Treasure Island. You know what I'm talking about? They did maybe it wasn't Disney.
Yes. Treasure
Maybe
Planet.
It was DreamWorks.
DreamWorks did Treasure Planet.
Treasure Planet. It has that sort of feel to it.
That's that one. It just tears me up every time I see it. That one with Sam. I
Yep.
always told Sam that came out when he was young. It's where Long John Silver in that says to Jim Hawkins, and it's all space age. They're on a spaceship and all this. And he says, "You look here, young Hawkins, James Hawkins." He says, and he's building him up, and he says, "Look," he says, "You gotta take the helm and chart your own course," he says, and he says something to the effect of, "You got the makings of greatness in you, boy." He says, "And one of these days," he says, "you're gonna shine like the stars. I only hope I'm around to see it." And but the scene was so emotional, and my son loved that. And there were times in his life, as everybody who listens to this show knows, that Sam got into trouble in his teen years. And that's something I used to tell him all the time. I say, "You got the makings of greatness, but you got to take the helm. You got to steer your own course."
But there be a time when he was the spawn of Satan, and I was like, I have
There
no
was a
idea
time
where
when he
that
was
devil
the spawn
came
of
from,
Satan,
but
yes.
he's in you, boy.
Yeah, he's there. And
Don't feed him.
I wish I could play the clip from that.
You were looking for a picture of Wendy.
I've got it here.
Okay.
Silver's.
Just steering you back on course, mate.
You don't have to steer me anywhere. I got it. It's right here. I steered myself off to get something. Let's see. Let's see if I can find this. Let's see if it's on here. Oh, if I play this, I'll get a copyright hit, so I can't play it. But
don't play it.
What?
You know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'll play it if I want to.
I don't
Play
want
it
to get
backwards.
copyright
The hell with you
But I don't
two.
want
I'm
to.
looking out for you, lad.
He says here. He
They
says
won't hit
here.
you with that
Now
strike
you
for 2 years
listen to
anyway.
me, James Hawkins. You got the makings of greatness in you, but you gotta take the helm and chart your own course. Stick to it, no matter the squalls. And when the time comes, you get the chance to really test the cut of your sails and show what you're made of. Well, I hope I'm there, catching some of the light coming off of you that
And
day.
Hawkins says, "Gosh golly, Mr. Silvers, that's awesome. You really think so?"
Yeah, that's not what he said. Don't ruin my moment, or I'll take you. Look what I can do. Oh, God, where'd Dave go? Oh, did you disappear? All right. So anyway, here's the picture of Wendy, by the way. Let's bring it in, add it to the stream. There you go.
There she is.
So there's the portrait I did of Wendy. She said, bum, 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 ba-da-da-da-dum, bum, 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 ba-bum.
And with that, I'm going to have to fly. I have to go take care of things.
All right, you too. Because you know what? It's 10:59, and I said I was going to do a short show. We've got a minute left. So
That's short enough.
salute, Wendy.
If you bail out now, you're still a minute short.
Still a minute short. Well, I know. So, Dave, guess what? Love you, brother. Bye. And Field Guy, thanks for being here. And I got nothing else to say. I got
try
no
to be here
rich
tomorrow.
send-offs for you. I'm just mindless now. I have nothing left. So
It's all good.
for the day. Good to see you. I'm glad you woke back up.
Oh, yeah. I'll try to pop in tomorrow, but you'll probably be done before I get home or very close to it.
Maybe so. 4 to
I'll
5
try.
tomorrow. And we go maybe an extra 15 to 20 minutes after
That's
our
about the
show.
time I get home, too.
All right. Well, if you don't see us, well, it'll be about 6:20 your time.
No, I'm the
So
same
we start-
time as you, 5:20.
Oh, that's right.
Central.
You're in our time zone, even though you're New Orleans.
Well, I get off
Yeah.
at 5, but it takes about 10 to 15 minutes. Especially, well, no, they don't have parades tomorrow, but they will be.
Yes.
So
All right. Well, you have a good
Off.
day tomorrow. See you later, field guy.
See you later.
All right, folks. And that leaves it, you know what? Just down to me. Here, I'm going to take down the picture of Wendy. She's my co-host for Robertson tomorrow night. And would love you to all be here at 4 p.m. Central Standard, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, and Mountain Time. That, of course, would be 3 or 2 o'clock in your left coast time. So come on over and spend an hour with us tomorrow. And that's all I got for tonight. You know, I'm kind of worn out. I wasn't going to go an hour, but lo and behold, here I am. So all of you, thanks for being here. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for Robertson. We'll be back on Wednesday with Intrepid Radio and again on Friday with Intrepid Radio. Same time, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then, of course, on Sundays, Sunday morning, it's Sunday with Scotty and Rainey. And that's all I got for tonight. You have a good night and live long and prosper.